um, hold on.
Yeah, I agree to be recorded.
Okay, let me.
And so is it a 2-year program?
About 2.5 years. So I started in January and I'll be done in December of 21.
Okay.
So my first 3 chapters are due at the end of October.
Whatever you need, you know, I can help. Because I did a qualitative, so I didn't have to do any of that math, even though I'm a math.
Listen, I don't want to look at SPSS ever again. So
it was qualitative, interview, in-depth, so that I talked to 7 principals. That was me.
Yes.
And then I will go to your graduation. Because I couldn't go to mine because they pandemic, they canceled it.
Oh.
So at least I can cheer you on. I know.
They didn't have anything virtual?
No, well, they had, like, they show your picture, but I wanted to, you know, like, wear the robes, and my family was going to go, and about the only time my dad would leave the island would be for that. So that was, I was bummed. But the second best is to my sister over here. I'll bring the, you know, in Puerto Rico, you bring the congas, the tambores. How do you say tambores?
Drums.
Drums, thank you. Okay. I was going to say, can't help me out. So when they would call somebody, we would be.
Yes, I need that. I want to graduate in May because I'm just not here for the snow. I don't know if I said where I was from. But yeah, we get all 4 seasons.
Oh, yeah.
December is rough in Wisconsin.
Oh,
January is the coldest. Ooh.
Yes.
One of my real good friends that I met in Honduras lives in Wisconsin.
Where at?
My homegirl Natalie. Let me see if I can find.
What's her last name? Raming?
No, her name is.
We live.
Oh, are we?
Yeah, we're recording now.
We're recording. I don't know if we're live yet, though.
Let's not reveal.
Inside Look with Dr. Scott. And today we have a few panelists where we will be discussing specific perspectives on values, research, and areas of expertise. And I am so excited because I have an amazing group of people who have about 100 years of experience between and among them. Before we get started, I do have a disclosure that all ideas and thoughts that will be represented here today does not reflect our prospective organizations, but us individually. Again, thank you so much for joining us. I am Dr. Quinhon Nancy Scott, and I have an opportunity to join us with a great panel. Soon to be Dr. Burks, please kick us off.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Kanika A. Burks. I am a proud principal in the Midwest of a K-8 charter school that I love. This is my 21st year in education. So from being a classroom teacher to working at a university, doing a fellowship, to being an administrator, AP, and principal, and I absolutely love it. So thank you for having me.
Yes, thank you very much. Mr. Allen?
Good evening, everyone. I'm Gerard Allen. I am coming to you from Baltimore, Maryland, where I have been serving in an urban district for over 20 years, and I've served from the gamut from teacher to department head to assistant principal, and looking forward to the evening and the conversation.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Caston.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jaquin Caston. You know, my former students affectionately know me as Profe Caston or Senor Caston. I'm an administrator at a correctional facility in Baltimore, Maryland, a level 3, which is medium security. But my education experience ranged from Spanish teacher for 10 years. I've been a reading specialist as well. And also I've served as an assistant principal and literacy leader. And so it's a pleasure to be here this afternoon to talk about a subject that I really enjoy, education, and how we can help others to further their knowledge and wisdom in regards to the subject matter. So thank you for having me so very much, Dr. Scott.
Thank you for joining us. Dr. Martinez.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Dr. Nancy Martinez. I am the proud principal at Career Center High School. This is my 24th year in education. I am passionate about what I do, how we impact lives at all different levels in many different ways. And one way to continue this impact and deepen this impact is to have programs like this so we can exchange ideas and have fellowships. So thank you for having me.
Thank you. I am so excited. I put on social media that I had the top educators in the country, and indeed, each of you have a special place in my heart. So again, thank you so much for joining us. Question number 1, how has COVID-19 impacted standard educational environments, including any day-to-day operations or even those in the prison system? And feel free to just jump in. Anyone can go first.
I will say definitely, all of our lives changed in March, right? We all had to figure out very quickly how to continue to educate our scholars while they were at home. And it was fast and furious. However, the scholars stayed at the center of the planning process, as well as continuing to educate them at their grade levels and standards aligned instruction. So the shift really started in March, and we just continued to refine over the summer to be prepared for this academic year to do virtual learning. And so whether synchronous or asynchronous, we're making sure that it's still grade level appropriate, rigorous, engaging instruction for children.
And I think that, oh, sorry.
Go ahead, Dr. Martinez.
One of the things that I appreciated about this time is that I never seen like such a rapid pulling together of every member of our school community and our district. We could have taught a lesson or two to the government as a whole on how to pull something out in record time, and with, like Ms. Burke says, with students at the center. It also exacerbated some haves and have-nots that we have in our district. And luckily, we had a great team to address those, but it reminds us that of the challenges that we have day to day with some of our student populations, our most vulnerable student populations.
And I think from my perspective, I think that with this crisis within the correctional facilities, I think it's going to really be interesting on how do we educate these men and women and keep all of the COVID mandates together. So, not having more than 10 people in a certain space, making sure that everyone has proper PPEs, making sure that, we are offering equal access across the board to people who will want to be a part of a school system or department that's already relatively small. So what is that going to look like, and how is that going, who are we going to service first, and how is that going to be handled? So that's definitely something, I think within the correctional education sector is definitely going to be of something of importance of how do we continue to educate those who are already in very close confinement. How are we going to continue to educate them and to make sure that we're following all the CDC mandates and guidelines that have been set forth for us in regards to all of us staying safe, as we try to go forth in regards to education.
Exactly. And I think being in an urban district that is very, very heavily impoverished, we've had sort of the opposite of that. You know, how do we manage to connect with all of our students who don't have those home resources? There aren't computers in the home. Even within the schools, there aren't enough computers to service every student. So we were faced with that, and I do give the district and community partners credit, for trying to rise to the occasion to ensure that students were able to connect. But I think one of the other things that it really highlighted or magnified is the disparity that so many of our students are suffering, and not just, yes, we have the academic gap, we have the technology gap, we have the economic gap, we have the home situation gap that a lot of people just don't really think about when they're thinking of, our kids and what they're missing. So even those kids who have pretty intact home situations, but with parents who are not as educated and not as sophisticated as to how to navigate the system, that has been magnified during this time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, all great points. Can you share, as educational leaders, what's your major focal right now? And I'm thinking about safety, especially, online safety. I'm thinking about professional development. DEI is huge right now. Like, morale. What's your major focus right now?
I think that one of my priorities is the social emotional level and the social emotional health of both my students and my staff, and to put safety nets that students can reach and teachers can reach when they feel that they need that extra support. And that's part of my background as a guidance counselor, that I know that you cannot get to the mind without getting to the heart. So under understanding that we have to let them know that we're here, we care, and if you have a problem, we're just not gonna say, oh, well, we can do anything. No, we have to show them. And that translates into phone calls at any time that they're available, resources like my colleague said. And we even had meetings to bookend the week, just to vent, just to give in a place to breathe to our staff and have fellowship. That has so much weight into the morale and how they re-energize to tackle all of these challenges that they never had seen before. So, but when their attitude is positive, that we are all behind them 100%, they are more willing to lean into their discomfort and into that growth mindset that we need to tackle this challenge in virtual learning.
I think for me, one of the biggest things is connectivity. And not only just with the technology, but just getting the urgency to connect to the children and their families. Because, we're looking at, what is this, about 6 or 7 months that we've been in this. And with students being so far removed from school, here they would be coming back. We would be in our second week, of school in presence. And so I think, for me, that's the big thing, because what I'm hearing, not only in the school where I am presently, but also with colleagues, is that some of us are barely scraping 50% participation rates. And so that's crucial when you look at, ending abruptly in March, and now we're starting again, and the connectivity just isn't there, and the urgency, and I dare say it, but sometimes the seriousness of what this is. As educators, we all understand the normal summer slide. And so now we're talking the COVID slide. I know Professor Caston can definitely speak to that. That was a part of his dissertation as well. But this is, it's new, and it's really concerning. But that's my focal point: getting kids and families to recognize that the connection is important.
So when we begin to look at correctional education is such a different monster. You know, not only do we have men that we have to service that are in there, but we also have to think about men who are transitioning back home. You know, when COVID began to happen and hit, you know, they were beginning to have a mass release according to what some of the directives that the governor put in place in order to help to protect the men and the women who are incarcerated. So we really have to also begin to think about those who've gotten out and how they're going to transition from being inmate into returning citizen. And what is that going to look like? How they're going to get services and things provided from them on the outside, as well as those who are currently in the inside. How are we going to start classes back up? How are we going to make sure that we're not mixing different buildings and different people, and making sure that everyone is staying safe, making sure that PPEs that we understand that they have to be utilized at all time in order to ensure the safety and security of both those of us who work in there and those who are our students as well. So that's always in the forefront of our mind. How are we going to stay safe, and how are we going to keep other people safe, as well as we try to educate them and prepare them to be able to return to the free society with the hopes of not recidivating and returning back to us again. Thank you.
Just listening to the three of you, just hearing about SEL, attendance percentages, and just moving forward through all of this, the word that comes to mind as I was thinking about our network's goals and priorities for this year, the one word that comes to mind is to empower everyone. So from our parents, being patient and allowing grace for someone mentioned earlier about like how to use the technology. We all had to learn very quickly how to use Zoom or Blue Jeans or Flipgrid or Google Classroom in a way that we hadn't used it before. So just understanding when parents call and have technical issues, or just like, I can't find this link, to not respond in a way that's abrasive, but in a way that's understanding, and really thinking about how are we putting things together that are user friendly. And when I think about just the staff, it's the same thing. Like, imagine like one day someone snapped and said, now you have to do it this way. That is what we asked of our staff. We said, now you have to do it this way. And it changes constantly, in letting them know, like, it's okay to try new things, but don't go all the way down the rabbit hole of like the Bitmoji classrooms or changing filters and things like that, because you know how creative we are as educators. But what's the technology that is going to be most beneficial for engaging scholars and making sure that what you're doing is rigorous? And then I think about our scholars, right? At the time that we're in, we're dual pandemics, if you will. And you think about the power of their voice and the choices that they're going to make. And so while we are virtual, we talk about, we have in the past this growth mindset, having grit, having the tenacity to continue to persevere. And if we're not teaching them that during this process, if we're not modeling that during this process, then we're doing a disservice. So, that empowering everybody comes through, managing just being healthy. Like, are we taking times for ourselves so that we can be fully present through all of this as leaders in education?
Yeah, I'm with Nancy. That's great. Everyone said something that was just so profound. I'm thinking about, typically, if we weren't in a pandemic and we were in the schoolhouse, part of our responsibility would be to create baseline assessments for students, identifying where they are. Mr. Allen, you mentioned the summer slide. Of course, soon to be Dr. Caston is, that's a part of your expertise. So in this time period, we still have to assess children. Like, that's still a part of our responsibility. Can you share how you're assessing children? Have you even thought about it? specifically, Mr. Caston, the prisoners have been gone from March to now. Is that something that your staff is also considering? Because we know that assessment, it's a crucial word, but it's still so important to know where our students and adult learners are.
So assessment is essential. So, basically within correctional education throughout the nation, most of the men and women are working to receive the GED and the pathways to a state diploma through that way. So that's ultimately the goal for most anyway. And also, in order to even enter into the school program, there's a test of adult basic education skills that allow the placement of these individuals or where they're going to be placed in regards to beginning, intermediate, and high school level, in order for us to put them in the appropriate classroom. So in order to even be a part, we're assessing from the beginning. And then in order to get out, you have to be assessed again, in order to, which is with the hopes of getting that GED. But also, with having those special education population, it's very essential that they are being assessed in order to maintain the individual educational plan. So, so assessments is key, but I think in regards to correctional education, it's a lot different and going to be somewhat easier than I think for the public school sector, as I could imagine it.
Mm-hmm. And even though we as educators pride ourselves in being student-centered and data-driven, we also have to keep in mind that, as I tell my staff, grace before grades, and that you are adding another layer in whether this data, how clean is this data when you have the kids taking the map with the parent on the side, kind of, touch that one, yeah, that one. Like we can't hear them on the other side, so we have to be cognizant of how that gives us an idea, but it doesn't tell the whole story of the child, as we've always known about numbers and data. But in particular, how clean is this data and how it will be used is what we need to be considering, and especially for our Ls and our EC students, like it was said. So definitely culturally, having a cultural lens in addition to everything else as you look at data.
Dr. Martinez, I loved that grace before grades statement. And
Me too.
Right? And Dr. Scott, when you asked the question, my mind immediately went to the summative assessments that we have, right? So like our state tests, MAP or STAR testing, all of those things immediately came to mind. And, we didn't have the state test because of what happened with COVID. And so now starting the school year, I'm really thinking about those formative assessments for information that the teachers are doing. So those exit tickets, them just looking at how scholars are performing in some of our different online programs, or even how they're responding in class. So I think assessing and getting that baseline looks very different than it would if we were in the brick and mortar. And Dr. Martinez spoke to parents being on the side. I know our primary scholars right now are going through DIBELS assessments online, right? And so you do have parents that are right next to them. And yes, those are their precious jewels. They want them to shine all the time. And it's hard to tell a parent, like, no, like, don't answer, let them do. And so we understand that, but again, it is, are we getting what the students actually know when we're in this virtual environment? So I think just assessing in ways that we didn't always necessarily think about when we were in the brick and mortar, but making sure that formative assessment is happening every single day.
Agreed. And I think our assessment data is really going to be problematic for the next 2 to 3 years. We really aren't able to get a true picture, and we know how difficult assessments and testing is in the regular environment.
Yes.
And so, as soon to be Dr. Burks is saying, with parents wanting to assist, again, the connectivity issue, and then the reliability of students being unsupervised, taking assessments. So that's really going to speak to a lot. And I know a lot of districts are, dependent upon their assessment scores for a lot of their funding. But, going back to Dr. Martinez, it's going to have to be grace before grades and sympathy before scores, because it's just not, it's just not going to be the most accurate, portrayal of students and their abilities. And I think another thing that we don't talk a lot about in the education circles is the effect of trauma, because this COVID situation is very traumatic for a lot of students, and that is going to manifest itself in student results and assessment results as well.
Yeah, I agree. And I'm sorry, Dr. Martinez, not just students though, right? So teachers, administrators, I'm sure each of us, we have a COVID story on the, on the line now. And it's so important that we think about the impact of what the stress has been. And so as leaders, how are you handling the emotional stress, the balance of, I have a child at home, I have an animal at home, I'm not feeling well myself. It's such a balance. Like, what you are dropping so many gems tonight. What gold nugget can you provide to us in reference to that work-life balance that we talk about but often act on?
Dr. Scott.
Go ahead.
Our one word this year at our campus is balance. And it is looking at balance in a way of some days you need more of something and some days you need less of something. But there is one thing that I need every single day to get me through every day, and that is my faith. That's my faith. Like, I have to, I have to get up in the morning and pray. When there are mountains before me and I'm like, I don't know how I'm going to get through this. It's my faith. And that is when you say, like, what's the one thing that is helping you get through? It's that, because that's the one thing that, and I know this is going to sound odd, but that's the one thing that, like, right now I can understand it. I know that he is always going to be here. I'm walking in his purpose, and I have to constantly believe that and go to him for guidance when nothing else makes sense. So that's a very like definitive answer, but like prayer, meditating, taking time for myself, which I didn't do in the past. And now, I have to. I got to take care of this mind, this body, this spirit, because if they're off, by no means am I going to be balanced for my staff. And so for me to say, be balanced, if I'm not modeling what I expect, then I can't keep saying that only together we will balance.
At our school, I repeat myself with caring for the caregiver. We have to, and then we, like you said, Dr. Burks, we have to model. So if I want my teachers to care for the social emotional needs of our students in the classroom and the possible trauma that's in there, I need to be interested in the social emotional health of my staff, and how I address those will give them an example of how to address similar situations in the classroom. And I usually sign off my emails with shoulder to shoulder, and it's very strategic that I choose these words, because if we're gonna move together, I cannot be over you, you cannot be under me. We can only move forward when we are shoulder to shoulder. So and my staff is always like sending me pictures of working on a Saturday, thinking that I'm gonna be, oh, you're so dedicated. I'm like, I need you to put it down. and I need you to go and, you know, put the nicest frozen beverage of your choice and look at that beautiful backyard on the beautiful sunny day that God has given you.
Yeah.
And that's all I want you to do today, because the rest will come. So, so that's showing how to social emotionally care for them so that they can care for others is paramount.
Fantastic. Well, you know, I love me, so I'm going to make sure, you know, that I take care of me. And I believe that as an instructional leader, it is very important, as I believe someone already stated, I think it was Ms. Burks who stated that, you know, you have to be able to model what it is that you're expecting from your staff. And, you know, I have to be honest, I learned from LinkedIn. It was a very prolific statement for me during this time, and I've carried it with me as a mantra since the beginning. And it stated, "This is a pandemic, not a productivity contest." So I make sure that those who I am around, that we understand that this is something new that we have never faced before, something that we are learning to understand, something that things are going to change daily. So we have to remember to be flexible. And in the midst of being flexible, we have to remember we don't have to try to be overachievers right now. We just want to make sure, again, that we are safe and that we are secure. That's number one. And after we realize that, as Dr. Martinez said, you know, all the rest is going to come together as long as we are acting within a professional manner. So I think it's very important for us to remember that, so that we're not stressed out, because if we're not healthy, if we're not well, we're not going to be able to educate anyone, because we're not being able to minister and take care of ourselves. So I think that is very important to just sort of share with everyone, to remember during this time, so that we don't become overwhelmed or anxious with trying to be overly productive at this time. We just want to make sure that we are consistent, because sometimes consistency is the key, not the amount in which you do, but the consistency, because a little will turn into a lot. Just as well as taking a whole lot at one time as well. So we need to remember that as we're going forward, and knowing that as long as by the end we have completed and mastered a puzzle, then it all is well. So we have to just remember that and keep that in the forefront of our mind as we are trudging through this pandemic. Remember, it's a pandemic and not a productivity contest. Thank you, LinkedIn.
That was good. That was good. So we're running out of time. It's 7:05, and we have 5 more minutes. But I wanted us, before we left, to talk about students with disabilities. It's such a special population for the work that we do, even across sectors. Is anyone doing anything creative, or you've heard about something? One of the things that I'm grappling with is our students with disabilities that are unable to get online, our students with disabilities that are non-readers and they're having a difficult time, or based upon their disability, they're unable to concentrate and they really need to have an adult with them or someone else to have that ongoing consistent support, and they don't have it. So are there any gold nuggets, theories, research that anyone wants to share for this particular population?
I can start. I think that one of the main things are that they need different approaches to their learning. Some of them will do okay if you mail a packet and the mom takes a picture because they're unable to get into the computer because that stresses the child out. Then me as a principal say, you know, just send me a video, just send me a picture, and that's his attendance. That's okay. You know, for them that to tell verbally to the teacher, and that is like the proof of learning, is just finding the right fit for the child. And it's individualized education plan. There's no other time that this is going to be more important to have an individualized education plan like it is now. So finding the right conduit for their learning, it's going to be paramount, and that's how we're trying anything and everything under the book that could work for this particular child at that moment.
I agree with you, Dr. Martinez. Dr. Scott, you asked for like one golden nugget, and it is just when you said that conduit for learning, what do they need the most? Some of our scholars that do receive special education support are performing better in the virtual environment because of the ability to go into breakout rooms, because of the private chat, because they can produce things differently than they may have been able to do in the brick and mortar, but also, especially with our very young scholars, working very closely with parents, figuring out, as Dr. Martinez said, what are things that we need to send home, or what are conversations that we need to talk to parents about how they can support their child at home. And then that collaboration between the teacher of special education and the general education teacher, what is that conversation like, so that those supplementary aids and services that are within the IEP, that they understand, like, this is for any child. This is not just for this specific child, but it's multiple things, but continuously trying something until you find the right thing.
So, you know, as a literacy leader, you know, I think it's very important that we teach parents the importance of just having their children to read and read to their children and have a love for books and all things literacy. You know, you're cooking from recipes. You're doing some very unique things. We're providing the families with strategies, you know, that are just simplistic. I think about a parent contacted me yesterday from my church, actually, and asked me some things to do with her children, you know, and just giving them basic reading strategies, just to ask their children, what do they know? The KWL is the easiest thing you can get, because it gives you all 3 strategies in one: a before, during, and after strategy that is very simplistic. You can gauge what they know. You allow them to facilitate their own learning through, you know, learning about what they want to learn, and then find out what they learn. And then when it's done, mom and dad, you close it up. And, you know, as we talk about special education, I also think we need to talk about the special population of the English language learners as well, because we often forget about them. And we need to make sure that the you know, parents are understanding that they don't have to be forceful with English, but to make sure that their children are as literate and as well spoken and eloquent in their native tongue first, because the research shows that they will be able to learn English easier if they are literate in their own language and they're eloquent in their own language, because then the problem becomes that we only need to make sure that they understand word attacks and word strategies, because the problem is vocabulary versus the grammar and the syntactical portion of language learning. So we have to remember that for that special population as well. You know, being a second language learner, I understand how it can be frustrating. Not only do you have to learn the content, but you have to learn the language in order to be able to understand the content. So you're looking at a double-edged sword there, just as well as those children who are trying to learn, who has some type of condition that is causing them difficulties with learning. So just understanding and knowing different strategies that can be implemented, and teaching those things to parents, teaching those things to community members. So, because at this point in time, we all have to act as a community to ensure the education of our children. Is really back at that point where it's going to take a village. It's going to take you, it's going to take me, it's going to take all of us to ensure that our children are learning, because if we don't care about us, no one will. Thank you.
And I think, you know, just to touch base on that, the biggest thing is, with so many adults deciding what's best for, or the best way for students to learn, we have to stop and we've got to listen to the children.
Yes.
Because no one can tell you best how they learn except for them. And so it is very easy for us to get into the conference room, or as they say, in the ivory tower, and say, this is what we're going to thus say it that you're going to learn. But we have to listen, and not only those students with special needs, but also I'm not an Ebonics fanatic, but I do say we have to be considerate of those who speak in a non-traditional English format. And
Absolutely.
so that, just as that, you know, non-native student has to learn the language and the culture of the standard English, those students who come from communities and from homes where non-standard English is the English of choice, and many times is the English that is known, we have to be considerate of that as well. So all of that is going to make a play as to where we move in terms of moving the students, because they are the ones who know best how they learn and in which methods they learn.
Such an important point.
Yeah, that's good. Very good. We do have, I mean, just so many, I want to say it's good and leave it at that, but it's just so many gold nuggets that were shared about how to move forward. And I hope that people will take what works for them. Because I realize that we have a large population that's struggling, but I want to push on soon-to-be Dr. Casson, where he said that if we don't, no one will. And it really makes me think about, you know, when Ms. Burke said multiple pandemics, I'm thinking about COVID-19, of course, that's one, police brutality, BLM. There's just so much that's happened, the presidential election, right? And so much going on that truly impacts our communities. Are there any parting words that you have of inspiration as we as a society go through this unprecedented time?
Sure. Well, I'll start to share something that was a part of my pastor's sermon last week, and he said to us, "Don't be in such a rush to go back to normal, because a lot of what was normal we shouldn't have been doing anyway. And so this is a reset time, and I think we need to take advantage of that. As Ms. Burke said earlier, this is a reset time for a lot of us to up our game with technology. And had the pandemic not come along, we would still be doing the same thing. I know to push 2 buttons and I'm good. And then I go find the tech person down the hallway and say, hey, this is what I need, get it done, thank you, and I'm moving on. And I think it's just for us not to be complacent and just sit and wait for the day that normal returns, and to recognize that from this day forward, everything is going to be different. And we've got to prepare ourselves to do it differently, because we know what happened with when we were normal. And do we really want to go back to that? Or do we really want to say, you know, this is an opportunity, this is a chance, this is the moment to make a bigger difference, a different difference in the lives of our children.
And one way, and absolutely first step, is to give everybody a voice. At the end of the day, everybody just wants to be heard. And whether they can do it in different languages, and then you understand and validate it and celebrate those differences rather than seeing them as hindrances. What is the rich culture that everybody brings together to the table? We can be the designers of a new way to see our schools, our communities. So we are architects, and we have always looked at ourselves like that we wear many hats. The social advocacy hat is paramount at this point in time, because we're in a position now that the government is looking to us, and we have a stronger voice to say, like you said a minute ago, the normal was not good. So let me tell you how it should be done. And this is one of the few times that the politicians will listen to educators. So let's use this platform that we have to advocate for social justice for all of our students and all of our communities.
Agreed.
Well, I believe that education is still the key, and in Spanish they would say la educación es todavía la llave. So I think that, you know, education has always been utilized in order to bring about change. It's also been utilized to bring about growth. I think that, you know, I think of the days of old where education was definitely the foundation of many communities, and especially our democratic society as well. So I think we have to teach as if it matters, and we have to learn as if it matters, and we have to be able to make up our own minds in regards to everything, how we feel, how we're going to live, how we're going to work, and where we're going to work, and what do we want to advocate for. You know, we want to be well-rounded, and we want to have a broad and general knowledge about many things, so that we can make informed decisions, so that we can be productive citizens within our democratic society in America. And I think we have to remember that education is still the key. Education is still important, and we have to make sure that it's at the forefront of the conversations that we are having, and that we are exposing our children and we are exposing ourselves to all things education, you know, that we are reading and we're being well informed, again, so that we can make some righteous decisions. Thank you.
You kept saying as if it matters, and it just kept, I wrote it down. And education matters. You said education is the key. And I just think about, you know, some of our mission statements that you read for schools, and really meaning when we say that every child can learn, every child will learn, is crucial right now, because we're seeing that we're using all of these different methods to teach our children, to teach each other. We're all learning right now, and to seize this moment and know that tomorrow is not promised. So every single day, strive for it to be your best day. When obstacles come your way, think about, how can I learn from this situation so this obstacle doesn't happen again for me? And how can I share some knowledge so that it doesn't happen for someone else? And just keeping a growth mindset through this entire, what we're going through. I don't want to go back to normal. I don't. Because what we're learning paired with some of the things that we already know is going to be amazing. But everybody, especially our children, can learn, and they will learn, and they're looking at all of us through all of this. Like, how are we handling all of this? Are they seeing us be emotional when it hurts? Because that's a lesson learned. Are they seeing us being resilient? Are they seeing us seeking knowledge? Are they seeing us work together? Are they seeing us use our voices when we complete the census and when we go vote on November 3rd?
Absolutely. Again, thank you so much. I do want to offer our guests an opportunity that if they want to put something in the chat, please feel free to do so before our time has come to an end. While we're waiting for anything in the chat, in the event that our guest has a question or a thought, is there anything keeping you up at night that you want to share, and maybe with all of the words of wisdom on this panel, they're able to provide some insight?
What about the children of trauma? That keeps me up at night. When we were able to facilitate services for those children in the brick and mortar, and now it's harder to find them. And we don't know if it is harder to find them because something happened to them, or it's connectivity, and that always gets to me, because I know what they went through. They share what they went through. So yeah, that's what keeps me up.
For me, what's keeping me up is, how are we going to reduce recidivism? How are we going to break the cycle, shatter the revolving door of recidivism, keeping men and women from entering and leaving in and out of our prison systems? You know, that's something that's very near and dear to my heart, you know, because our families need mothers and fathers to be there in order to be role models and help to teach and to encourage the next generation and be able to share their testimonies of why it's important to try to do the right thing and to try to have pro-social friends and make cognitive decisions and to think critically about your consequences in regards to the action that you might do or be led to do. I think that's very crucial. It's constantly on my mind. What about the work to help these returning citizens be able to keep their feet on the street for real, you know, because we need them to be out. We need fathers to be in the home. We need our mothers to be in the home, you know, so that they can steer these children and the next generation to be our leaders of tomorrow. Hashtag Whitney Houston. I believe the children are still the future.
Yes.
Love it.
Yeah, I think one of the things that keeps me up, honestly, is everyone looks to the educators, to us, as having all of the answers. And what keeps me up are those educators who are tired, who are seen as being strong, and no one ever goes to say, I know you're having a struggle, because they muster all of their energy to make sure the kids are right, to make sure that they have a great face for the rest of the staff. But when they go home, they are seriously beat down. And then and those persons who are at that point where they can retire, or they're just at that point where they say, I just can't do it any longer. And these are the people that we need desperately on the front lines. But so many times they're not getting the support that they need, because they're only seen one way, as being the strongest, and not recognizing that even the strong has a moment where they need to be undergirded. And so that's something that really keeps me up. I'm seasoned. I have those moments as well. And I know that if I'm feeling that way at times, I know that there are others who feel that way. And so we really got to be conscious of that, because if we don't have healthy bodies, healthy persons, healthy people in front of the children, what is there to be given to the children?
Yes.
Mr. Allen, let me add to that, that sometimes the professionals that are more prickly in certain meetings and not the most positive, those are the ones that we have to seek out the most, because we don't know what is going on, why is that, and once we start peeling the layers, we understand. And when we show that understanding, all of a sudden that prickliness start to just become fuzziness, like a kiwi that it's very sweet inside.
Absolutely.
So seek out those people.
Yes.
I would say mask off, not the mask that we're wearing because of the pandemic, but mask off in the sense of being just our authentic selves.
Yeah.
You spoke to it, Mr. Allen, when you talked about like people that are tired and all of these feelings that you're having, and we get all buttoned up and put our glasses on like everything is okay. So I say what keeps me up at night is who's wearing the mask today? Like who is faking it until they make it, and take that mask off and turn your voice on, whether you tell me out loud, whether it's in a chat, and it might not even be me that you're talking to, but making sure you have someone in your circle that you can just be authentically you, and you can express yourself, you can get things out. I wonder how many of us are at home going to bed and afraid to look in the mirror because that real person is looking back at you. So I say mask off, voices on.
Beautiful, absolutely beautiful. So our special guest that we had is actually was shared the information through Mr. Allen. She shares that she's a mother of 4 and she's just taking it one day at a time. And so I thought with our 3 minutes that we have left, if we could share just a bit of encouragement as a mother of 4 trying to manage during this time.
So I just want to tell that parent, and which I did reach out in the chat box, you know, I know me, I'm definitely there to assist, to help with this community and this village. So I definitely extend myself and my services to you in regards to world languages and anything literacy. Hashtag, I don't do numeracy, so I wouldn't be the guy for you and your children.
I do numeracies. I'm a math teacher by trade.
Oh, wow. Wow. You know, so there you go, Mom. You know, I think that, you know, we're really passionate about what it is that we do. And I think that anyone on this panel will be there to answer any questions or to offer, you know, any helps that we can for both you and your children, you know, because it does take a village. And I do stand on that. And I'm not a man about just words. I want to be about action. So I extend myself to you. Good luck. You're going to be fine. You're going to do well.
And reach out to your village. You already said, I have 4 wonderful children, wonderful. You acknowledge this is not easy, but you're trusting in God, and we are going to make it work. So you already have some answers right there. And then that determination to learn with them and to teach them. The fact that you are doing this together with your children lets them see, like, learning doesn't stop just because you turn whatever age, or just because, you know what, I've walked across the playground and I'm not at school anymore. Learning is continuous. So reach out to the village. You've just added some more people to your village. Reach out to us.
Absolutely.
And we absolutely are here for you, and keep on doing what you're doing.
Absolutely.
Give yourself some grace, my dear. Children are very perseverant, and they will, whatever they're missing, they will catch up with the, you know, with their teachers. Don't forget to laugh with them. Humor is such a healing emotion, and everything else will come because God is with us. And so look at all the people that you have supporting you. So for now, just give yourself grace and give your children grace and enjoy these moments with them.
And it's a time of exploration. And I'm a firm believer that everything you need lies within you. That doesn't mean you don't need others, but others can only strengthen the strength that is already within you. Sometimes they uncover it because you don't know that you have it. You know, and sometimes they encourage you to stand on it because you only think you have a little bit of it. But, you know, together, all things are possible, and not just in the literal sense, but in the greater sense of, you know, where we are in the faith that Dr. Burks mentioned much earlier. You know, it's all rooted in that. You know, the faith is going to push you forward.
Yes.
I agree. Thank you, thank you, thank you. This was phenomenal. I could not have asked for a better group of panelists. You were amazing. I appreciate each of you in your own right. I definitely look forward to us sharing this time again, because those that we serve and those that are connected to us need this information. And so